Ladies and gentlemen, let us pause for a moment and reflect on a truth that is often hidden in plain sight. Poverty is not always about the absence of money. More often, it is the quiet result of habits that seem small and harmless, yet accumulate over the years to form invisible chains. These chains bind us, keeping us stuck in the same place while time passes and opportunities slip through our fingers. The path out is not luck, not chance, but choice, and it begins with recognizing the habits that hold us back. Consider the first habit, the cycle of postponement. Many people live with the idea that tomorrow will be the day they start saving. Tomorrow will be the day they launch their project. Tomorrow will be the day they dare to say no to distractions. But tomorrow, as we know, has a way of becoming next week, and next week becomes next year. Imagine a farmer who never plants his seeds because the soil does not look perfect. The seasons pass, and while others reap harvests, he is left staring at barren ground. Delaying what matters is not an innocent choice. It is a theft of our own future. Another subtle trap lies in the company we keep, surrounding ourselves with voices that complain, doubt, or settle for less creates a fog that clouds our own vision. Negativity spreads faster than fire in a dry forest, and if we are not careful, we inherit the limits of those around us. Think of a bird trying to take flight while tied to stones by invisible strings. To soar, it must cut those strings. Likewise, to grow, we must find the courage to distance ourselves from those who drain our energy, and instead walk with people who lift us higher, who remind us of what is possible. Then there is the dangerous habit of underestimating the power of small, consistent actions. People often believe wealth or freedom requires giant leaps, forgetting that rivers carve valleys through patient persistence. A person who saves even a small portion of every paycheck, who invests time each day in learning, who commits to finishing tasks rather than leaving them half done, is building bricks of freedom one by one. The tragedy is that many chase grand opportunities while ignoring the simple discipline of small steps. As the proverb says, do not despise the day of small beginnings, for every oak tree started as an acorn. At the heart of these habits lies one essential truth. Poverty is more about patterns of thought than numbers in a bank account. To break free, we must change not just what we do, but how we see. Instead of asking, why don't I have enough? Ask, how can I create more value today? Instead of thinking, I can't afford this, shift to, how can I afford this? These are not tricks of language. They are keys that open new possibilities, reshaping our mind to see abundance where once we saw only limits. Real change begins when we take ownership of the choices that shape us. A wise voice once said, chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. But here is the hope. Every chain can be broken when you recognize it. Debt can be replaced with discipline, delay with action, fear with courage, and scarcity with gratitude. Each day offers a fresh chance to write a new story. So let us walk forward not with guilt for past mistakes, but with the calm confidence that our future is built on what we choose today. If you rise each morning, ready to sow seeds of discipline, gratitude, and clarity, then tomorrow will not steal your harvest. You will not only break the habits that keep you poor, you will build the habits that make you truly rich, not just in wealth, but in freedom, peace, and the joy of knowing you lived fully awake. Poverty is sustained more by hidden habits than by lack of money. And this truth often goes unnoticed because people believe that financial struggle is purely about not earning enough. Yet when we look closely, it becomes clear that habits, both conscious and unconscious, create the circumstances we live in. Many individuals fall into patterns of behavior that seem insignificant day by day, but compound over years into outcomes that feel like fate. For example, someone who spends without tracking expenses may not realize how small leaks drain a ship over time. The habit of ignoring details, of not being intentional with money, becomes an invisible wall preventing progress. Poverty then becomes less about insufficient income and more about patterns of mismanagement repeated over and over. There is also the habit of living reactively rather than proactively. When life is spent responding to problems instead of anticipating them, energy is always directed toward emergencies instead of growth. This reactive living keeps people trapped in cycles of stress, unable to break free and plan for long-term stability. Consider the difference between a person who saves a small portion of their income regularly and one who waits until they have extra to save. The first builds a cushion, creating options and reducing anxiety, while the second rarely finds themselves with surplus. The difference is not income, but habit, and it is the invisible habit of prioritizing long-term security over short-term comfort that shapes financial destiny. Another destructive habit is the avoidance of discomfort. Growth requires sacrifice and often the courage to face what feels difficult, whether that is saying no to unnecessary spending, confronting debt honestly, or taking the time to learn new skills instead of indulging in passive distractions. Those who avoid discomfort stay within familiar limits, but familiarity rarely brings prosperity. A person may work tirelessly, yet remain poor because their habits keep them safe in a narrow circle, rather than pushing them into opportunities that demand effort and risk. Poverty, in this sense, is a byproduct of the habit of choosing ease over challenge, of silencing the inner call to stretch beyond the known. Hidden habits also appear in thought patterns, such as focusing on scarcity rather than possibility. When someone believes that money always runs out, they develop habits of hoarding, fear-driven spending, or mistrust that closes doors. This mindset-driven poverty is deeply ingrained because it shapes not only what people do, but how they interpret opportunities. A person who sees only lack will miss the chance to grow even when abundance is within reach. They may ignore an opportunity to invest in education or a skill, telling themselves it is too expensive, while failing to see that the greater expense is remaining stuck. Small, repeated habits create invisible boundaries, and many do not recognize them until years have passed. A life filled with procrastination, poor choices, negative influences, and avoidance accumulates into poverty that feels unshakable. The truth is that poverty maintained by habits is more powerful than poverty caused by lack of resources, because resources can be gained, but if destructive habits remain, any new wealth will be wasted and the cycle will repeat. Hidden habits are the unseen architects of struggle, shaping reality in ways people only notice when the weight of years has built upon them.